Welcome to Boomer Between the Games, presented by Xfinity. I'm your host, Boomer Esiason. Now, later on, we're going to take a look at the huge game by Tom Brady against the Browns, and then we'll also take a look at some great matchups for Week 6 in the NFL. But first, let me introduce our guest. On the phone, we have Cris Collinsworth. He's an Emmy Award-winning sports analyst, the lead game analyst for NBC Sunday Night Football, and former Pro Bowl NFL wide receiver and teammate. Welcome to the show, Cris. How you doing today, bud?
What's up, partner?
All right, let's take a look at this game between Tom Brady and the Cleveland Browns. Now, I thought he was going to play well. I had no idea that he was going to throw for over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. Even the Cleveland Browns are not the best team in the NFL. We all know that. But that performance came out of nowhere, and I'm thinking that this is going to be something that everybody's going to have to deal with moving forward, because I'm sure that he and Bill Belichick have a statement to make.
Yeah, and don't you think in many ways it worked out the best it could for everybody? I mean, they go 3-0 without him. And all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, well, it's just all Belichick and, this system, and they've done this before with Matt Castle. And then all of a sudden they come out and they lay an egg on the last one and they lose the game. Then Tom Brady comes back and it works great. So it's like Belichick's great, Brady's great. They don't have to hear that debate who's the most important, and it ended up working out. And now they're on a roll with these two tight ends. Martellus Bennett with Gronkowski is almost unfair.
It is almost unfair because they're a matchup nightmare all over the field. Too big, too strong, too fast, and then add Chris Hogan to that and the way that LeGarrette Blount has been running. You don't even talk about this offensive line. That's the other thing that people don't realize. When you have a great quarterback, what he can do and how he can take pressure off of the offensive line. The
best pass protectors in the NFL are quarterbacks, plain and simple.
And you talk about a quarterback that has been hotter than anybody in the NFL the last 2 weekends. That have been Ben Roethlisberger, 9 touchdown passes, a whitewash of the New York Jets. 2 weeks we're going to see Pittsburgh and New England meet. But prior to that, I would say that all of us analysts going into the season, not knowing what the Patriots would turn out to be, thought that the best offense resided in Pittsburgh, and the marriage between offensive coordinator Todd Haley and Ben Roethlisberger has really turned out to be something sort of magical.
And the biggest thing was, if you remember when Haley came in, was they had to keep Ben alive. He was getting hurt a lot. He came in and implemented the system of we're going to get the ball out of his hands. Occasionally let Ben be Ben, as they say, and let him hold on to the ball and move around and make a play. But the core part of the offense was to have him get the ball out of his hands, let the playmakers make plays, and start taking hits off of him so he could stay healthy and stay on the field. And that part of the strategy has really kind of gone unnoticed, but may have been the most important part of it.
Time for our Twitter question of the week, presented by Xfinity. And it comes from @JohnnyLabello19. Who has a better shot of winning it all, the Steelers or the Patriots? And it's #BoomerBTG. For me, it's going to be the Patriots. And the reason I say that is because watching Tom Brady just effortlessly throw for over 400 yards. We talked about it already with Gronkowski and Martellus Bennett. You throw Chris Hogan in there. You have Edelman. You have Danny Amendola. You have LeGarrette Blount. You have an offense that really is second to none, I believe, in the NFL, and they could do so many things. Plus, there is a history and expectation for them to get back to the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that Pittsburgh doesn't have that, but I just think because it's Belichick on the sideline, that gives him the distinct advantage, and that's why I picked the Patriots.
Yeah, and my concern about the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially playing against the Tom Brady or one of these top passing teams, is they're still just so thin at the cornerback position. They've got some guys out there, but eventually if you go 4 wide, an Artie Burns, a Justin Gilbert, who they got from Cleveland, some of those guys are going to have to step up and really make plays. They've gotten decent play out of William Gay and Ross Cockrell, but you start spreading those guys out, and that may be the concern.
Hey, if you have a question for us, tweet at us with #BoomerBTG, and maybe we'll use your tweet on the show. So let's take a look ahead real quickly. Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles are going to go visit Josh Norman and the Washington Redskins. I know you and I were talking preseason about Carson Wentz. I told you what Frank Reich, my former college roommate, who is the offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, told me about him. He's a can't-miss player. He was shocked that more people weren't talking about Carson Wentz like that pre-draft, but the Philadelphia Eagles pretty much knew what they were getting. They basically mortgaged the future to go and get him, and he has answered every single question. And he even played well last week against Detroit. Wasn't his fault that they lost the game. Now they go into the Washington Redskins, who have basically resurrected their season. Give me your sense on what you think you'll expect in this game.
Well, you're exactly right. Jason Garrett went on and on about how strong Carson Wentz was. You know, one of the questions, and I don't even really know where this stands right now, but what was Lane Johnson, who has really turned into the kind of their better right tackle, an excellent player out there. I don't know what's going on with that possible.
He will be suspended.
Suspension, is it over? Is it already done?
Yeah, but it's basically they listened to his appeal and they upheld the suspension.
There you go. So that's going to be a bit of an issue for a young cornerback. So this is going to be a team that's going to have to make plays from the rookie position. It's going to get tougher. Washington's going to be a good test. They lost the first close game that they had in Detroit.
I still like the addition of Jim Schwartz in that defense. That defense is a lot better than it was last year, probably in large part because they're not on the field as much as they were with Chip Kelly as their head coach. Okay, now the Ravens come in and they're going to be visiting the Giants. The interesting thing about the Ravens this past week is they've done now what Rex Ryan did after week 2, and that's they fired offensive coordinator Mark Trestman. They've added now Marty Morningwig to the position of offensive coordinator. They're traveling on the road to the New York Giants. I think we have two struggling quarterbacks here in Joe Flacco the last 2 weeks, and of course Eli Manning of the Giants. Eli Manning came out this week, Chris, and actually said he has to play better, and he's taking ownership of the problems that they have on offense. What kind of impact will it have on the Ravens offense now that Mark Trestman is no longer there?
Well, Mark Trestman's a guy that wants to get a ball out of his hands very quickly. We saw the same thing with Jay Cutler. And one of the things that Pro Football Focus really took a hard look at, they took away his big plays. So in other words, his completion percentage went up. But if you're going to live with Jay Cutler as your quarterback, what you want to have are those big, let's throw it up, let's throw it down the field, and hit some of those 50-yarders to those big receivers. And those were going away. And I think that you may have had a little bit of the same thing going on with Joe Flacco. You know, Joe Flacco is a guy that you want to see the big arm. You want to see the movement skills and get out of the pocket a little bit and go hit some big plays. So maybe that had something to do in the same sort of way they did in Chicago, a little too ball controlled with a big play quarterback.
I know one thing, both of these teams are basically under the spotlight because of their quarterback play. And I know both players want to actually live up to their expectations. Hopefully they'll give us a good show come this Sunday. So thanks, Chris, so much. Catch us next week when we have Bart Scott joining us. Thanks for tuning in to Boomer Between the Games, presented by Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV.